Hey everybody, it's Mike. So let's see, how am I going to, you'll see it because by the time you watch it, I will have figured out a clickbaity title for this video. But what is the most tragic aspect of the borderline codependent dynamic? And a deep realization that I've come to as a result of somebody sharing through comments here on this channel. And for that, I'm grateful. So I really do appreciate people's comments and their questions. Obviously, if somebody is abusive, I will block them. But it's okay if you have questions for me or disagree with me or whatever. So let me make my disclaimer. I'm not a mental health professional. I'm not a psychologist or a psychiatrist. I am not an expert in mental health. I am not a borderline, so I don't know what it's like from a personal experiential aspect to be a borderline, and I don't know what they need to recover. I am a self-proclaimed codependent who survived and escaped an extremely toxic, the most toxic, condensed experience of my life was trying to love a borderline. And that's all I'm here to do. The focus of this channel is to help codependents literally just become aware that it's impossible to have what you think you want with a borderline, an untreated borderline. From what I gather, it is possible for borderlines if they get into treatment, which means going to therapy on a regular basis and taking full responsibility for the damage that their disease has caused others and seeking to become honest. That is what I mean by getting therapy. I don't mean going and taking a couple classes for a couple of weeks or looking at it online or reading some books, really doing some inner work. I think that's the only way. And that is only because I'm taking what people tell me. If I'm honest, my experience of what I went through, I can't imagine them ever being able to wrestle that beast into submission. I've never seen anything like it. But I believe that it's true. I just can't comprehend it. So I only talk about what I know. And so if you want freedom, if you want your soul back, if you want your identity back, if you want to feel like a human again and feel like you have value and you have worth and that you're lovable and to have hope again, because I lost all those things in that relationship. In a relatively very short period of time, I was reduced to nothing. And I didn't think I was going to survive. And I even said, I might even say it in some of those early videos, I think I'm broken. And so if you want to get repaired, I can share with you what I've done. I am no longer in pain. I don't spend any time worrying about my ex, thinking about my ex. I don't have any rage or anger or resentment. I take full responsibility for what I did. And on top of that, I honestly do see I was with somebody who did love me and really did want to be with me. And that's the tragic part. I think she really did. I think she really saw me as, what I think I really am. I think I'm a pretty amazing guy. I think she saw that, and I think she really wanted that. She just couldn't. Her disease, her mental illness wouldn't let her do it. And so if you want to be in that space, I now have a great life, and I actually have good interactions with people of the opposite sex and all that kind of stuff. I haven't found my soulmate yet, but my next soulmate, but I'm sure I will. If you want to have that hope and you want to be, without fear and without anger and without resentment and without pain and without the loss and the addiction and the longing for them and what what you could have had. If you want freedom from that, please keep coming onto this channel, and I'll do my best to share my experience and how I got here. By the way, that's what that link up here will eventually be. I'm thinking about what to put together, but give it some time. Anyway, so what is the most tragic thing? Most tragic thing is, I think that what I just said, that I think what separates the borderline from other cluster Bs, the most notable being the narcissist, which, by the way, I have to say that phrase is so overused. I mean, anybody who's got any axe to grind, the first place they go is they just call everybody a narcissist. I mean, people, because I have my opinions, people call me narcissist because I have an opinion. The a couple of codependents have gotten on here, and really tried to shame me out of my opinion by saying that I'm a narcissist and I'm controlling. Bear in mind, I don't even know you. You're just like a name on beneath some words there. I don't know you. I didn't knock on your door. I didn't email you and say, hey, can you come onto my channel and please believe everything I say, or otherwise I haven't done that. I have some opinions, and one opinion, which you'll never be able to talk me out of. I'm pig-headed about it, totally stubborn, and inflexible for my own health, which is why I recommend you adopt it as soon as you're able, is that anybody who has had an interaction, a romantic commingling with a borderline for more than 48 hours, by definition, you are a codependent. By definition, all you have to do is just say partner to borderline equals codependent. That's all you have to do. I mean, I didn't make that up. The word codependent, don't get hung up on that. If you want to call it helpless victim, whatever works for you. But people get really bent out of shape because I have said, it doesn't matter to me how long or what they, because people want to make a distinction between being a codependent and being an empath. I'm still waiting to make my empath video, but it's like being an empath, you're a warrior, but if you're a codependent, that's bad. It means the same thing. Anyway, so I'm going to be reading from a comment from somebody who is a borderline who's been in recovery in therapy, regular therapy, for a long time, and I really appreciate this person's comments and actually reading these comments. Most of the time, by the way, if you've got big, long comments, I'm not going to read them. But these are worth reading because this is somebody who's doing the work and is able to shed light on what goes on. And when you hear what goes on inside the mind and the soul of an untreated borderline, there's only one conclusion, which is you cannot have a successful. Not only can you not have a successful relationship with an untreated borderline, you will be reduced to rubble by their mental illness. They don't want to hurt you. I believe that. That isn't to say that there aren't times that they aren't consciously doing horrible things, because there's all kinds of other things that are going on. But I think what makes a borderline different from the narcissist is that the borderline really does not consciously want to destroy you. They really want to love you. I believe that. So I'm gonna read some of this. I'll try not to read the whole thing, but I'll read some of the things which I think are the most salient parts here. So this is in response to my video, your borderline partner will discard you. If they are untreated, it will happen. This person says, it will happen. I'm a borderline who left after 10 years, 16 years, and again after 6 years. And in that relationship, I was in therapy and knew all about borderline, but I still just couldn't help it. And I did it in the most awful way imaginable. All right, that's not coming from me. That's coming from a self-proclaimed borderline who says that they are in therapy and had been in therapy for 6 years. So if you suffer from the same delusion that I did, which was if I can just get her into therapy, we can sit in the therapist office together, and then she'll be able to see, she'll get a handle on it, and we'll make the best, and we'll be together. I feel for some of the people. There's been no shortage of codependents who have been very upset with me, call me all kinds of, it's so interesting. These codependents, the first line will be that they vilify me. First they say that I'm vilifying, borderlines, that I'm attacking them, that I'm destroying their ability to recover, and I shouldn't put people, they say that I'm being this really horrible person, and then two sentences later, they'll start calling me a narcissist, and all these really horrible names. It's just so ironic and hypocritical. But they've come after me because I'm saying this. It's not a question of if, it's a question of when. And just because you're able to ride that roller coaster for an extended period of time, if they are an untreated borderline, what is going to happen is that eventually you will be able to reach them. It may take years. In this case, according to this person, 10 years, 16 years, and 6 years. And she says, in that relationship, I was in therapy. That's why it was shorter, in my opinion. So some of you might want to compare yourself to me, as people did in the beginning, because I was only with mine for a few months. And people will go, yeah, try 6 years, try 10 years. Well, the reason why mine only lasted a few months is because I've been in therapy for a long time. I've been in 12-step recovery for almost 40 years. I've been doing spiritual work and self-analysis for, my entire adult life. So I was able to get to her much more quickly. I was able to give her what she was begging from me, which was, to connect, to really give her love, to have the love penetrate. I succeeded. And that's why she flipped on me. Had I not been, had I, done my instinct, which was to hide my feelings, stuff them down, hold up, and just try and pull us together, we'd probably still be together. But what ended up happening was that there was a 3-week period where she went bonkers and was on medication. I don't know what kind of medication it was, but for anxiety or something. And you know how that is. It's, it's pretty serious stuff. And so she was, ironically, she was out of it, but she was the most honest, and she was able to look at herself and stay, but she was like in bed, couldn't get out of bed, and saying things like, I'm going insane. I feel like I'm going insane. It was horrible. Because there was nothing I could do. There was nothing I could do to help her. It was really sad. But because I was able to, after that 3 weeks, and she seemed to get better, which now I realize wasn't the case, what happened is that she found a facade. And this was the facade that had it all together. And where, when I first met her, she was love bombing me, but there were things that were off, like her fingernails were long and dirty, and she wasn't showering all the time. And, I saw that. I red flag. I said, oh, she's just a hippie. But she just, she wasn't holding her facade together very well. After the 3 weeks of going down into hell and coming back up, she put on a perfect facade where her makeup was perfect. She was perfectly trimmed and clean, and I didn't even recognize her. In fact, when I first saw her after she came out of it, she, called me over, and I could tell you why I think she did. I went, wow, because I was like, who is this person? And I thought, she's got it together. She's going to be okay now. And so because of that, she then told me, looked me in the face and said, I don't remember anything of what happened during those 3 weeks, but I know you took care of me, and I know I put you through hell, and I'm really sorry. You didn't deserve that, blah, 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 blah. And I promise I'm going to be better, and I promise I'm going to get help. And, because we had made an appointment for her to go see a therapist about borderline. And I promise I'm going to get better, and I'm going to be there for you, and I'm going to give back to you, and all these other things. And then, I was relieved. Whew, okay, she's going to go to therapy. I've done my job. I can relax now. And then I went back, and then I was able to have all of my feelings for those 3 weeks of all the craziness and all of the betrayals and the ups and downs. You guys know what I'm talking about. And I said, listen, I got to talk to you, because I was so angry. I was finally allowed to have my anger because I knew she was going to be okay. I then had all of my anger, and I did what I probably wouldn't have done if I had not been in 12-step group and in therapy and all that. I said, listen, I got to talk to you. And I went over and I said, I'm really angry at you. You really hurt my feelings, and here's why. You did this, you said that. And she goes, I don't remember that, but I believe you, and I'm so sorry that that happened. You don't deserve that. She looked me in the face and acknowledged it, and there was a lack of empathy when it came to me telling her some of the really horrible things that she did. And I wasn't doing that to make her feel bad. I was trying, on the one hand, to get it out so that I could dump it and get rid of it, but also so that she could see. And there was this like kind of like, yeah, I don't remember. I'm so sorry. And then I cried, and there was other things going on. I had moved down there to be with her. I was already in a foreign country because I've been in Australia for a year, and then I moved to a place I didn't know to be with her. I had gotten a house for us. I had rented a house, and it was unfurnished, and I was literally sleeping on the floor in a inflatable mattress. That was all that I had. I didn't even have internet. The phone service was horrible. And then I just said, and it was Christmas Eve. And I said, listen, now that I realize that she put herself together because her mom was coming to visit. That's right. Her mom was visiting. And I'm convinced her mom was borderline. I met her, and that's a whole other story. But the brief interaction I had with her, and I saw how she interacted with her mom, I'm convinced that her mom's borderline. And then I cried, and I said, please don't reject me. I can't take it. Right now. At least wait until after Christmas and New Year's. Please don't do it now. This is the worst time of year for me. Reminds me of all the love I didn't get. And I'm all alone here, and I came here for you, and I know we're sort of trying to figure out what we're doing, but please. And then she love-bombed me and wiped my tears, and I think she really meant it. She really took care of me, and I felt so loved, and I heaved a sigh of relief. I have a friend. I have a real friend that I can depend on. And then the next day, Christmas Day, she, after all of that, and then, you know what it's like. The worst possible time, the worst possible thing she could have said. And I now realize that happened because I successfully did it. I showed her love by not only taking care of her and showing her that I would take care of her no matter what was going on, that I would be there for her and love her in her worst. And then I shared with her my negative feelings in a loving way to let her know that, and I even said, I'm sharing this with you because if I don't, I know I'll end up needing to go no contact because I'm so angry. But I know that you're working through stuff, and I'm not holding it against you. And I think that was an incredibly loving thing to do, and it might have been something that maybe nobody's ever done before. And she split on me. And so my point is that it only took X amount of months because I successfully did it. I went in and I dropped the codependent. I'm just going to not say anything, and I'm just going to take it all on. I was a loving, interacting partner, which to me is when somebody can look you in the face and tell you their negative feelings, but they're not doing it at you or blaming you for it, and they're not hiding it or stuffing it down. They're putting it out there, which actually creates intimacy and allows people to come and connect, and I was doing that. And I think if I hadn't done that, I might still be with her. Who knows? So this person says it will happen. I'm a borderline who left once after 10 years, 16 years, and again after 6 years. And in that relationship, I was in therapy and knew all about borderline, but I still just couldn't help it. I think that's why it was so short compared to the others, because she was in therapy, which means that she was able to be a loving partner, and so the person was able, their love was able to get to them. But you have to understand, if we're talking about somebody who truly has borderline and is untreated, they're broken. And I don't say that lightly. I don't. It hurts me to say it. I spend my whole career, my other channel, is helping people be the best that they can, no matter how bad it is. Because I've been through, I've been able to overcome, unbelievable things. The rest of my family, none of my nuclear family survived, and I did. It's because I did all the things I'm sharing with you, that three-pronged approach. It's been my whole life doing that the best I can. So my whole career is helping people, not only survive, but, have the impossible unbelievable. And so that's why it's really painful for me to, it's like I'm admitting defeat when I say, I can tell you, if there was anybody, and I believe this, as egotistical as this sounds, I believe this. If there is anybody on this planet who could be with my ex and make it work while she was untreated, it was me. And even I couldn't do it. Which brings me to the realization, which after reading this, I haven't even got to the great stuff in here, but it made me realize why for my one and only true borderline relationship, it came right after, 2 years after I had lost my fiance, who was, everything that you would want, who really did love me, who gave to me and empowered me, that saw me for not just who I was, but who I could be, and reflected that. And because of her love, I was actually able to rise to my, my potential. Somebody who just had nothing but love to give. And, the kind of person that, how does the world exist when a person like that leaves the planet? And, but I wasn't able to cure her, obviously. She died of cancer. I wasn't able to cure her. My love couldn't keep her. I couldn't cure her. I couldn't do it. Obviously nobody can. And as much as I consciously knew that, on an unconscious level, there was a part of me that, was devastated by that. And so there was a hole inside of me, because when the twin flame of your life leaves this planet, it's those of you who've gone through it know what I'm talking about. And so I picked somebody who wanted to be loved, who honestly, truly wanted to love me. She really did. When she was love bombing me, yeah, it was superficial, and yeah, it was a facade, but she meant it. And she really wanted, because she knew those were the things I wanted. Things like, she'd cook me food and come and bring me food, and I would weep because nobody had ever done that for me before. And I took it as love. It was an honest gesture. She meant it. But it was a facade, and of course it didn't last. And so I picked somebody that, even though, like with my fiance, whom I also, I was able to give her the love that she hadn't had. And we both had this amazing experience of being truly, deeply loved. And I was able to give that to her, but it wasn't enough to keep her alive. And so I lost her. And with the borderline, it was the same scenario. With somebody that wanted to love me, but couldn't because of an illness. And somebody whom I was able to reach with my love, but it didn't take. And it wasn't enough to heal her. So I got to relive that. That's why I sought her out. Now I know. And the reason I know that is because of the comment left here by this borderline. So let's read the whole, at least some of it. So again, this is in response to my video, your borderline partner will discard you if they are untreated. It will happen. She says, it will happen. I'm a borderline who left out once after 10 years, 16 years, and again after 6 years. And in that relationship, I was in therapy and knew all about borderline, but I still just couldn't help it. You guys got to hear that. You've got to hear that. That's not just somebody that's somebody who was in therapy for 6 years. So you got to believe that she was completely focused on, I want to be in a relationship and love somebody and not harm them. And she still couldn't. You guys got to hear that. If you're a codependent, if you're an empath, if you're a caregiver, I don't care what word you use, helpless victim, your love will not give them the ability to love you back. They're broken if they're untreated. Can you please hear that? I was in therapy, knew all about borderline, but I still just couldn't help it, and I did it in the most awful way imaginable. I won't get into all that. I won't dredge that up. At that moment, for some reason, I felt justified. I could have told you all the reasons he was no good for me. After the last time I got involved with a narcissist, as opposed to a codependent, and that was the worst 6 months of my life. He never said one truthful word. So again, that makes sense, because if somebody who actually was giving her true love, real love, that has to. That's like what I said in the video that she's responding to is I say that at some point you will achieve your objective, which is what they're asking you for and what you think is going to fix it, which is, I'm finally going to love them. Listen, the borderline isn't the only one that love bombs. The codependents love bomb in their own way. They're just relentless about it. The borderline does it in a flash and then backs off. But the codependent loves, just relentlessly. That's their love bomb. They just keep doing it no matter how many times you smack them in the head. They keep coming back. I'm going to love you no matter what. They keep giving and giving and giving and giving. And they're doing it, those of you who are doing it, you're doing it for a reason. You're doing it to get them to love you back. Don't bullshit yourself. You may feel like you want to heal them and help them. You can tell from, the way I talk. I would. To this day, I would. If somebody gave me the magic thing, whatever the hell it was, that would actually go and magically fix her and fix that broken, whatever the broken connection is, so that she could take the love and give it back, I would give it to her, even if it wasn't with me, just because I know, I lived it, I saw it. I can't even imagine what it must be like to be her on a daily basis. I can't imagine a worse fate for anybody, a worse hell. I can't imagine it. Yeah, I would do it in a second. So you do have that honest desire. I'm really harsh with you guys because I want you to get out of your denial, because you are selfish also. As much as you want to pretend you're the knight in shining armor, you're also trying to get your needs met, and there's nothing wrong with that, but you're also selfish and manipulative in your own way, and you use love as manipulation. So the point is that if you will reach your goal and you will love them, and that's when they will split on you forever. Forever. There will be a forever split, and it's when you're actually able to love them. So if you, like me, were successful enough to get your borderline to discard you permanently, as far as I know, then that means you did your job. You can pat yourself on the back and move on. And let me say something else. Let me put on my spiritual teacher hat for a second. That may have been your karma. For all you know, you may have been the borderline in a past life with that same person. Your karma may have been to actually be able to get your love in there to reach them. Their soul isn't going to forget. I guarantee you that. Their brain may not remember, but their soul won't forget. And that love that you gave successfully that drove them to discard you, that love will go into their next life. And it may be a very healing thing, and it may be, because there are people in this life, as you know, who are just so full of love. They just keep giving love, and they mean it. They're not codependent about it. They just keep loving. It's because there's some memory in their soul. So if nothing else, not that you should go looking for borderlines to do this, but if nothing else, just go, my job is done. I did my job. I can move on now. All right, let's see what else. So she talks about being with a narcissist. So that's why she went from somebody who actually loved her, and the love penetrated, and then she, as she said, she couldn't help herself, and she had to split for good and discard them for good. But then she went the opposite path, which is what we do. We all tend to do that. I've done it. I've done it since I was with my borderline ex. I went from that to just total superficial, no commitment, no strings attached fun. And I've been doing that for a while. And I'm going to keep doing that until I'm ready to find somebody. I'm starting to get there. But, we all do that. So this person bounced back, and now she went for a narcissist, because a narcissist is incapable of any intimacy, of any real love. So she would have been able to then chase after and try and get the love and all of that, so that she wouldn't have to look at the pain. It's more painful to be loved than to chase after the false love, at least consciously. So that makes perfect sense. She went from real love to a narcissist, because the only and she was treated, so it didn't last very long, but an untreated borderline, the only relationship that's going to last for a while is with a narcissist. And that's why borderlines and narcissists hook up. Because either the borderline is going to, have their supply, which is the codependent, or they're going to be the supply to somebody. The only person capable of, using them for a supply would be a narcissist. Because anybody else will actually see the pain and see the need and want to help. The narcissist is the only one who has no empathy and doesn't care, and sees a very tasty victim meal. And as I've said before, the quiet borderline, however, will always, if they choose to, a quiet borderline will destroy anybody, even a narcissist. Just eat them for lunch. All right, what else? So this person goes on to say, let me see if the real point that I wanted to say is that this is a borderline who's agreeing with my perception, which is that it will happen. And it doesn't matter how long it takes. If you're under the delusion, no, but I've been with mine for 3-4 years. I was talking previously about the codependents who want to fight with me and attack me because I'm telling them that, their relationship with a untreated borderline isn't going to work, and they get all bent out of shape and they want to say, I'm married to one, I've been with one. One of the first ones was somebody said, well, maybe it's because she didn't really love you. Mine really loves me, and I really love her. And I didn't respond, but I remember wanting to say to the guy, yeah, talk to me in a year. Doesn't matter, the delusion. If this is really what it is, this is the end result. They can't not do it. They can't not split on you. They have internalized, as somebody said very eloquently, probably somebody who's in the mental health field, which I'm not. But they said very eloquently that the borderline has internalized the parent. And the message that the parent gave them was, you deserve to die. And so they've internalized that. So when somebody actually says and gets them to believe that they deserve to live, because they are defending and simultaneously fighting with their internalized parent, they will turn around and they have to discard you. Because you did your job, you made them feel loved. Now they must kill you. Because it would be blasphemy for them to be allowed to receive love. And because that message was maybe pounded into them literally at 3 or 6 months of age, it is in there because they're the most receptive at infancy. It got in there, it's solidified. Nobody, not even God, can go in and fix that. Do you see that, codependents? You will never get what you want from them unless they get to some therapy. And even then, based on what I'm reading, and I completely believe it, even then, they still don't get fixed. They just learn how to manage it. And that's the best they'll ever, it's like, other things in 12-step group, alcoholics and drug addicts. Alcoholics, drug addicts can never drink again. Alcoholics can never pick up and drink half a beer. Once they do that, they'll be broken and they'll be right back into it. It'll be as if they've never left. I've heard stories of a guy who was 40 years sober. 40 years, 40. And one day, friends came over, knocked on his door. They were going to take him to a meeting, because that's what they did. They went to meetings all the time. Whatever happened, who knows what happened to the guy. Knocked on his door. Door was slightly open ajar. They push it open. He's dead on the floor, a bottle of vodka empty. Just drank the whole thing in one shot, dead. They never grow the ability to, they just have to manage it. Borderline's the best they're going to get is to manage it. And I read this. Now, I am so happy. It makes me, very emotional to hear that this borderline was able to do the work, looks like, years and years of work, and was able to find a partner that, from everything I read, it sounds like they're healing each other and with each other, and I have every belief that they will be together for the rest of their lives, and that makes me, very happy to hear that. But I forgot my point. It's just going to be, this person makes it really clear that they're just managing it. It's still going on. They just have now, they have coping mechanisms to deal with their coping mechanisms. So let's see if there's anything else. So here, let's see. Today in my relationship of 4 years, it is still a day-by-day commitment to responding rather than reacting. Therapy and healing is a daily process. I am not cured. The only two things I know I will never do is to cheat or walk out. I am sure of that. Will I split and tell my husband that he's the meanest man I've known and I can't stand to look at him? I certainly hope not, but I honestly can't promise that. After 10 years of therapy, if I can catch myself before I split, which is most of the time now, I have learned to be able to tell my husband that I'm sorry, I'm feeling my child self, and I need to self-soothe, as he can't help me at that point. This is coming from somebody. Bear in mind, that must take a tremendous amount of strength, because I read that, and when I hear that she's feeling her child self, which I know she's like at her core, issue, that makes me all the more want to go pick her up and take care of her. Like, that's the moment. Now I can go in and but she says no. You have to hear this, you guys. This is why the untreated has to split on you. They have to. Because as she says here, I'm feeling my child self and I need to self-soothe as he can't help me at that point. I will either just leave the room or sometimes he will leave and let me have the house to myself for a few hours. The one thing about this is that I need for him to, okay, so that's more, so we don't need to get into all that. Not that I don't appreciate it, I really do. Let's see. Occasionally I can go past that point but still recognize the desperate child, and before she completely melts down, I can tell my husband that I need that infant to be held, and that can really work, but it's tricky because other times if he would try to do that, I would push him away. Again, that tears me up inside. I was born early, at least 6 weeks early, probably longer than, earlier than that, and 1963, they put me in in an empty fish tank and pumped oxygen in it. So I didn't get held or touched, the first who knows how many years, it's a Freudian slip, who knows how many months of my life. So when I hear that, it makes me it just, oh God, I just want to pick her up and hold her. But she's saying that that's, only when she's able to is she able to handle it. The rest of the time she can't. It's really tragic. It's taken a long time to get to the place where we can use that successfully. Borderlines may not feel guilt right away, but I promise you we live with intense shame, guilt, remorse, regret most every day of our lives. Mike said we will get our karma. I believe we live that karma every day. We don't even feel worthy of living. All we really want is to love and be loved, and yet those are the things we can't do. Successfully, at least. We desperately want someone to save us, but that's impossible. Only we can save ourselves. I have this recurring dream in which I'm underwater and I can't reach the surface. I'm flailing and panicking, but I finally just surrender and then realize I can breathe the water. I'm safe. I believe this is the metaphor of my life. Yeah, so knowing what little I know about dream interpretation, drowning means that you are drowning in your emotions. So if you ever have a dream that you're drowning, it means that you are overwhelmed by your feelings and you believe your feelings will kill you. Instincts as well, instincts like base of the brain instincts. And this is definitely borderline. They drown in their feelings and their emotions and their instinctual reactions. But the great thing is that she breathes underwater, which means you can have your feelings. This is why I promote the 12 steps, because the 12 steps teach you contrary action, which means it doesn't matter how you feel. What matters is what you do, which means you can have the feeling and still do the right thing. You want to punch the clerk in the face, but instead you say, "Thank you, sir, have a nice day." And yes, it is fake and you're faking it, but there are conventions that you have to follow in life. And it doesn't matter how you feel. So you can have any feeling you want. There's that, that tapping, the guys, the EFT guys, and they have their little saying, which is, even though I have this feeling, I thoroughly and completely accept myself, which means it's okay. That's what a parent is supposed to do. You have to parent yourself. If your parents didn't do it for you, you have to do it for yourself, which means that, that a parent, when a baby is crying, let me get out my little assistant here because she helps me. When the little baby is crying, the parent doesn't slap her across the face and say, "Stop crying, I'll give you something to cry about." That's what the borderline parents might have done, but or the narcissist parent for sure did. But instead, the mother picks it up and bounces her and doesn't say, "Stop crying." Says, "It's okay. Go ahead and cry. Go ahead and cry. I'm here. Mommy's here." In other words, it's okay to have this feeling. I still love you. You'll be okay. You're just having a feeling right now. And then as you get older, that little baby who gets loved and taken care of, and of course that does all the neurological things and makes all the the nerves come together, which I'm sure is what didn't take place with borderlines. I'm certain that is the same with me. I wasn't even able to sleep in the same bed with a woman, which is one of the reasons my first marriage failed, because she really wanted me to sleep with her and I couldn't. And I couldn't because I just, somebody else's energy was in the room and her feelings, and it was almost like I could feel her dreaming, and breathing. I couldn't. It was so frightening and overwhelming. I couldn't do it. And it wasn't until I met, the woman who I already told you about, where it was like, not only was I able to, it was the most amazing thing was to go to sleep next to her and to feel her energy and mine together. It was the only time I ever felt, I could just relax and just be, was in her presence. But so I totally understand that, and I think that's what happens with borderlines too, and I think that's what happened with me when I was a infant. I didn't get the nurturing and the loving and the holding, which allowed the brain to do its thing and put the, so I totally get it. All right, what else? Um, maybe I'll come back and do some more. Is this enough? I'm getting a headache, which means that this has been enough for this one. So we'll just leave it here for this time. But, look, the bottom line is, guys, if you're with a untreated borderline or you were with an untreated borderline, number one thing you need to realize is they can't. It will never happen. They must discard you, and they must discard you in the worst possible way, not because they're evil, but because that is their own internal reality. And when you strip them with your love, with your intimacy, when you strip them of all of the facades, which they are begging you to do, you're not wrong about that. They are seducing you into it. They are hoovering you back into it. They mean it when those big watery eyes look at you and say, I love you, I want you, you're the best person in my life. They mean it. So how can you not pick that little baby up and love it? How is that? Nobody can resist that if you got a heart. Right? So of course, yes, that's why afterwards you feel like you're absolutely certain they're the most evil people in the world. They lied to you, they manipulated you. Maybe, of course, there was some of that going on. Of course there was. But there were periods, and I'm thinking of when I was with my borderline ex, there were periods where she meant it. There was one, I think I caught one, the most sane time I ever had with her was when she looked at me and she said, I know people have told me that I change. And I don't remember what I said or what I did, but I believe you. And then she said, maybe you shouldn't be with me because I can't promise you that I won't change again in the future. That second lasted and then left, and then the hoovering began and everything. And of course, I bypassed all of that. I took that as a sign, she's safe now because she's self-aware. They can't help. They will discard you in the worst possible way. It's just a question of if and when. You weren't crazy. She did love you. You did love her. There was some real things that went on. There was some real bonding that happened to you that didn't stick with them because they don't have the ability to they don't have the sense of self for it to stick on. It's like taking tape that's been in water. It just slips right off. Sticks to you, but it just slips right off of them. And so you can't. It's just a matter of time. If you're in it, get out. Untreated borderline, get out. The kindest thing you can say to them is, I can't stay here. This isn't helpful for me. I love you. If you still want me in your life after, I would say minimum 6 months, but even then, God, 6 years. After you've been in therapy for 9 months and you still want me in your life, give me a call and I will meet you at your therapist's office and we'll talk about it. That's the kindest thing you can say to them. And then get yourself out. 3-pronged approach if you want to get your sense of self back. Number one, get into therapy yourself with a qualified psychologist who knows how to help you work through your unconscious issues having to do with codependence, with a cluster B personality. Find somebody who's qualified and knows how to help you with that. Number two, go to CODA. Work the 12 steps. Right now with COVID, you can go online anywhere in the world and get involved in a CODA meeting through Zoom. Forget about the people. Forget about the crazy people. They're there because they're crazy. They whine and complain because they're codependents, and that's what codependents do. And forget about that. Find somebody who will take you through the 12 steps and work on that 4th step about your resentments and your expectations. That's the biggest thing that's healed me. The single most important thing in my recovery was that resentment inventory. And I do it every time I get one. That's why I'm still alive. Seriously. That's why I'm still alive. Third, the spiritual aspect. Have a spiritual discipline, not just some spiritual beliefs, but a discipline. Like you get on the mat and you meditate for a half an hour a day, or you get on the mat and you do yoga every day and do your meditation, or you walk in the woods every day, or you go to church, or you go to temple, or whatever the hell it is. It must be a discipline that you follow. Discipline is what changes the brain. It changes the brain and you start to think differently. And along with that, I would even say hold on to what I just told you earlier. Even though I have this feeling, I thoroughly and completely accept myself. Those are some things that I did. Coming up later, I'm working on it. I'm really trying to think it through so that I give you guys something that I think is valuable that you can't find at other places. I'm not going to try and just repeat what you get in 12-step or whatever. I'm gonna give you some things that have been really helpful to me. That's up there. Give it some time. I'm still working it out. All right, I think I beat this horse to death, and then it rose, and I beat it to death again. So I'm gonna just leave it here. All right, guys. Talk to you later.